Maryland's transfers have to be elite for the Terps.
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you guys for making us part of your day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bet when your first $5 bet wins. Maryland's transfer class, the incoming transfer class for the Terps, has to be elite for the Terps to be somewhat successful this year under Mike Locksley. I think I haven't made it a secret. I don't think I made it a secret at all that the Terps team this year has a ton of question marks. Basically, every position group you name, every position group you talk about, whether it's quarterback, whether it's running back, offensive line, whether it's a defensive line, whether it's a coaching staff, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Can the Terps cover? Can the Terps have a legitimate running game? Do the Terps have enough receiving threats? Do they have enough proving guys? There are pretty much anywhere you look, there's question marks on this team. In today's college football and today's college basketball and today's college sports in general, you expect a lot of the transfers, especially in football, to cover up a lot of those question marks that people have about your team, to cover up a lot of those weaknesses. And I do think Mike Locksley did a pretty solid job going into the portal and adding guys to key positions. But I do think that it has to be said that Maryland transfers, I think, have to be elite this year for Maryland football to be good. I don't think they can just be okay. I don't think they can be solid. I don't even know if they can just be good. I think some of these guys have to be elite for the Terps to have a solid year to get back to a bowl game. When you look at it position group by position group, when you look at who the Terps added, I just believe that Maryland has way too many holes, way too many weaknesses, and we're depending on a lot of guys in the portal. Some guys come from smaller programs, some come from bigger programs. There's a lot of variation of where we're getting guys from, but I just believe that the Terps secondary has to be, or not secondary, excuse me, their transfer portal class has to be pretty solid if the Terps want to compete this year, if the Terps want to do anything. And I think the goal always is to make a bowl game right now. I think that's always the goal. Mike Locksley will probably tell you the goal is to make the college football playoff and to win the Big Ten. But to me, that's not realistic. And I think to most people, that wouldn't be realistic. Pretty much anyone else besides maybe the people in that building. So for me, the goal for this Maryland team is just to make a bowl game. And I really like a lot of the transfers we brought in. When I'm really looking at the list, there's a lot of different players that I think are going to have an impact. But I do think that the transfers have to be elite. So when we really go by it and when we really go through each position groups, you start to realize, wait, this Maryland team is depending a lot on transfers. I do want to start with the quarterback spot because we don't technically know who's starting. I'm a big Malik Washington guy. I'm a big throw him in early. Obviously, he's not a transfer; he's a freshman. But there is there's a really solid chance that Justin Martin, transfer from UCLA, ends up playing early for the Terps. And to me, I do think that there is a world where that makes sense. I do think there's a world where that happens. And we're talking about the most important player on the field could end up being a transfer from UCLA from Maryland. So you start there. Your quarterback, the guy that's one of the guys that's competing for your job with the freshman phenom that everyone thinks is going to be a really good player, is Justin Martin coming from UCLA. A lot of people are really excited about what he's going to be able to do. A lot of people think he has a lot of a really high ceiling and that he's going to end up being a really good player for the Terps. And so you look at a guy like that, when you look at a guy like Justin Martin, who's competing for that job, who's 6'3", has a lot of the attributes, 6'4", 230. He's definitely a guy, when we talk about the transfer portal class, it's going to be extremely important this year for Maryland football, replacing Billy Edwards and Talia before that. So it starts right there. You hand it off, potentially the ball, to the most important position. Not guaranteed that he's going to start, but I do think that's definitely a possibility. But then you look at some of these other position groups. When you talk about Maryland's receiving room, pass catchers, guys that can catch, tight end, receiver, we're going to be relying on new guys. That's just the way it is. That's just the way it lined up. And there are some really talented guys. But if the new guys don't pan out, I don't think our receiving game will be pretty good. Will be good. I just don't see it happening. I like Octavian Smith. He's probably our best returning guy. I like Ryan Manning, but he hasn't done anything. I like Shalik Knoth, but hasn't really done anything either. I like Mekhi White looking the spring game, but he really hasn't done anything. We're going to be depending on Jaleel Farouk, who a couple years ago got a really big year for Oklahoma, did some really good things for that Oklahoma team. We're going to be depending on him to catch the ball. We're going to be depending on Caleb Webb, the transfer from Tennessee, to be proven to prove himself as a receiver, which he wasn't able to do much at Tennessee. Just didn't get the shot. We might be depending on Jordan Scott, transfer from Florida State, receiver 6'7", to be able to do some things for us in the receiving game. And then we talk about the tight end room, and you talk about the pass catching and helping out potentially a transferred quarterback. You look right away at Dorian Fleming's expecting to be their starter, and I think he is their starter. I think he's by far the best guy in that room. He's a guy we're going to be depending on for a lot of stuff this year. He's a guy that we're going to be depending on to get the ball to be a really solid Big Ten receiver or tight end receiver. He's a guy that's going to be huge this year for the Terps. And that's just the pass catchers. When you look at it, a lot of those guys we're going to depend on. And you know what I mean? If Dorian Fleming isn't good, we don't have that much in the tight end room. It's not like we have the deepest room. Like last year, it was like, okay, if Dylan Wade doesn't look great, Preston Howard's right there. Like, we don't have that. After that, it's really weak, to be honest. If Jaleel Farouk and Caleb Webb aren't what we think they are, the receiving room might struggle, quarterback room might struggle. And then on the offensive line as well, I think that's one of the main parts of this that I'm going to talk about next segment as well. So part of the reason I did this segment was because CBS Sports was naming the top transfer, the most important transfer from every team. And CBS named Ratrell Perry, the Maryland transfer offensive lineman, as the most important guy for the Terps, coming from Central Connecticut, which is really interesting because I don't know if that's who my first choice would have been, maybe because it's not super flashy. But when you read the article, it does make a lot of sense. They said, CBS said, there was no shortage of issues with the Terps offense last year. And it's not unreasonable to say Maryland have had the worst offensive line among Power 4 programs. The hope is Perry, a 4-star prospect and 247 Sports transfer portal rankings from Central Connecticut, can help solidify. Until that, they need to get as much help as they can get. So basically, they think Ratrell Perry is going to really help this offensive line. Was a 4-star transfer portal guy, and I agree. The offensive line has been pretty bad the last couple of years, and there's no reason why a guy like Ratrell Perry can't help out the Terps, can't help the Terps get better on the offensive line, a position group that we've been terrible on. So we're depending on Ratrell Perry to probably play tackle for us, probably left tackle, the most important position on the field. Like, you guys know what I mean? Like, we're depending on a lot of different guys to produce for us on the transfer side. And if you think it's different on the defense side of the ball, it's really not. The secondary, when we talk about the secondary, we're definitely hoping some of these guys pan out. When we talk about Dante Joyner, the cornerback, he's a guy that might start for us this year. Jamar Glasker was a highly talented 4-star recruit transfer from Wake Forest. He's definitely expected to start from us. He's definitely a guy that we're looking at in that corner room to be pretty good for us. And then the other secondary guys as well, like Gavin Edwards, a safety who we recently got. So there's definitely guys in that secondary that we're going to be depending on. And we like some of the other players that we bring back. We like Jalen Husky. We like Braden Lee. We like Kevin Humes. We like that we recruited Messiah Delhomme. But a lot of the secondary that was pretty abysmal a lot of the times last year is going to depend on the couple of transfers. Jamar Glasker, Dante Joyner, those are guys we're going to depend on next year to play really good ball. And then I think a huge part of this was our defensive line has just been middle of the pack to bad over the last couple of years. And we just don't really hear much about Maryland defensive linemen. I feel like playing at a high level. Like last year, we had Tommy King Basoto in the 7th round, and Jordan Phillips went to the Dolphins. And what was that, the 5th round? So you would expect it to be at least solid up front, but it hasn't really proven itself, or hasn't really come out as that way, even though we have a bunch of guys that have been draft picks. And Maryland's recognized that in the portal, and we brought in a lot of defensive linemen. We brought in Cam Rice from Ohio, 6'3", 290. He's going to be huge in talking about Maryland stopping the run. If Maryland's going to be better up front, he's going to be humongous in that. Joel Starlings from UNC, another high-level transfer, was a guy that a lot of people wanted, 6'4", 320. He's going to be huge in Maryland's defensive line. That lost guys that left in the portal. Ian Thomas is going to be a really big body up there, 6'4", 336. It was pretty obvious that Mike Locksley felt the need to address the defensive line, and I like it. Adding some big bodies. Not everyone has to be elite. Part of the thing on the defensive line, not everyone's going to be a freak. Not everyone's going to be Aaron Donald against the pass rusher. It's just about stopping the run at the end of the day and hopefully creating some push in the pass rush. But I think we're depending on transfers there as well. So there's just a lot of different guys. And on the edge, you're depending on a guy like D.D. Holmes as well. And then I missed Cedric Smith, too, on the defensive line at 6'4", 280. Like, there's a lot of different bodies that we're depending on to come in and play at a decent level. So I think it'll be interesting for the Terps. I think we got Meteor for sure, which I thought was the biggest thing, because I thought the last couple of years we haven't been big enough. We haven't been good enough up front, defensive line or offensive line. And I think Mike Locksley addressed that this year. Let's talk a little bit about Maryland's run game. Can it be decent next year? What's the deal with Maryland's run game? We'll talk about that next. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been better time to get on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? There's so many different things you guys can do on FanDuel. Of course, the NBA finals starts tomorrow. OKC Pacers, you could do that if you want to take SGA over in points, or if you want to take Halliburton over. There's so many different things you can do on FanDuel. And then also the NHL playoffs. If you want to take McDavid to get a point tonight, or the Oilers to win, whatever the case is, or the Panthers win, you can do that as well on FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel, it's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Let's talk about the Terps running game. I am very concerned about the Terps running the ball this year. I don't think it's been a secret. Maryland hasn't really been able to run the ball effectively in a while now. Last year, our running game, I thought, was pretty bad a lot of the year. And it sucks, because I thought we had the potential to have a better run game last year, because I was like, okay, Billy Edwards can run. But we just didn't do that much of it. I thought Roman Hemby has almost gotten worse over the last couple of years. And obviously, he's gone to Indiana, so we'll see how that goes. But last year, our lead back, Roman Hemby, 134 yards, 607 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, which is worse than what he was in 2022. In 2022, he was 188 yards, 989 yards with a 5.3 average, and it was worse than 2023. So he has kind of progressively gotten worse. Obviously, he's not a run game, but I put a lot of that on the offensive line. I think Nolan Ray, we're all really excited about his potential and his how explosive he is. He did average 5 yards per carry, which was better than Roman Hemby with 75 carries and 2 touchdowns. He has an explosive element to the run game that's really exciting. But to me, the run game doesn't even really start with the running backs. It's all about the offensive line. And I'm a big believer in not necessarily bad running backs, because there's no bad running backs if you're playing college football, but running backs that aren't as elite. Like, you don't have to have like a Scatabo or what's that kid's name who won the Heisman this year? Or was the runner up to the Heisman this year? I don't know why I'm forgetting his name. The Boise State running back. You don't have to have a guy or Ashton Genty. I don't know why I forgot that. You don't have to have a guy like that to have a good run game. To me, you just have to have solid backs that know to hit holes. And if your offensive line blocks at a good level, your run game's going to look good. And to me, that's a huge question about the Terps this year because I don't feel confident in any quarterback that goes out there. We like Malik Washington's upside. We like what we can become, but we can't sit here and act like, yeah, Malik Washington's going to be really good. We like Justin Martin. We like some of the things that he can do, but we don't know if how Justin Martin's going to play either. He hasn't played a ton of ball. We haven't seen any consistency from him throwing the football. So there is going to have to be some type of run game for the Terps to be successful. I don't think that's a crazy statement. And Maryland hasn't been a team that really likes to run the ball over the last couple of years. But I do think this year we're going to have to run the ball at least a little bit. I'm hoping with new OC, some of these new things, that we're going to be able to do those different things. But it starts up front. And I have no idea who the starting 5 offensive line is going to be. I don't know what's going to happen with it. I don't know who's going to play. We'll probably do a lot of different variations to start over our first 3 games. They're pretty easy. So I think we'll have the opportunity to be able to play a lot of different guys and play a lot of different players there at every position. But on the offensive line, we're talking about now, and at the running back against FAU, against Northern Illinois, Towson, like you can try different combinations. By that Wisconsin game, I want to feel pretty good about who we're throwing out there. But no matter who we throw out there, I don't know if I feel awesome about the blocking, whether it's Latrell Perry and Howerton and Isaiah Wright and Alo Bow and Alan Heron. I don't know. Maybe Jalen Gilchrist can slide in there. Michael Hershey at center has looked pretty solid. There's some other guys that we like that we think can be good. We just brought in Carlos Moore Jr. He was a pretty solid recruit coming from Elon. He's definitely a guy that we'll be looking at potentially to fill that role in. But obviously we like Latrell Perry coming in at tackle. I think he's going to be able to solidify himself a lot. So we'll see exactly how that line looks for Maryland. I don't know, to be honest. I just don't know. I don't know if it'll come together. But I do think the Terps need a running game this year. I do. I think it'll be extremely difficult to throw out Justin Martin or Malik Washington without having some type of run game. That's just what I think. And right now, I'll go ahead and say it. I don't know if we'll have one. I just don't know. I like some of our backs. I love Nolan Ray, man. I think he's a different gear than Roman Hemby, and he was technically more productive than Roman Hemby was. I don't know if that actually stays true if he gets the amount of carries that Roman Hemby had, but if you look at the pure numbers, Nolan Ray was a little bit better. But still, the offensive line I still didn't think was great. Williams was that's coming in. Who was a high-level recruit 2 years ago, the running back Williams. He's exciting. I wonder what he's going to be like. And then Josiah McLaurin, he's a guy that kind of flew under the radar, but we think can be a pretty good player. Those are 2 complimentary guys. And then I think Iverson Howard, the freshman, is going to get a chance to play as well. So I think Nolan Wright headlines that running back room that you don't feel great about, to be honest. I don't feel great about the depth. My whole thing was I didn't want us to bring in a transfer there because I was like, I don't really feel the need to get a transfer in the running back room. I'd rather get 3 guys on the offensive line rather than 2 on the offensive line and 1 running back. Like, I'd rather just have so many guys on the offensive line that just someone's going to work out than have another running back. Because at the end of the day, I'm just never been a big believer in the running back position. Not because those guys can't be difference makers, not because those guys can't be elite like they can be, but I just think that a lot of it for a program like Maryland, like you weren't going to go get a Christian McCaffrey or Ashton Genty or one of those types of players from the running back room in the transfer portal. So I just thought it's better to try and create holes up front where the solid runners, like a guy like Nolan Ray, who a lot of people just don't realize how good he actually can be, can hit holes, can do his thing. So we'll see exactly. I don't have a lot of confidence in the running back room. Some people may say differently. Some people might feel better about it than I do. I just don't know how good it can be for the Terps this year, but we'll see what ends up happening. Let's talk about Maryland's big man situation. I'm still really concerned about Maryland basketball's big man situation. Can the Terps add anyone else? What's the deal with that? We'll talk about that next. So my biggest concern about Maryland basketball is the size. It's the size. And we know basketball is a game of height. From since anyone was little, or since anyone gets bigger, whatever the case is, if you're taller as a kid, you know what everyone always says to you? You got to play basketball. Like, why aren't you playing basketball? You got to play basketball, whatever the case is. And it's just what it is. Size is a really important part of basketball. That's why the average height in the NBA player, I don't know the exact stats, got to be around 6'5", 6'6". Pretty tall human being. The average man is what, 5'10". Average NBA players 6'6", probably. Height is extremely important. Average college players probably 6'4". And so you just need some type of size to be able to play at a high level in the Big Ten. That's just the way it is. That's just the way in all basketball, whether it's college, whether it's high school. Teams that have more size than other, they usually are more dominant. They're usually better. When you look at two teams in basketball, like I know you guys seen a high school matchup where one team's got a guy, their starting guard 6'2", their two wings are 6'4", and they have a power forward that's 6'6", 6'7", and their center's like 6'8", 6'9", and you look across the other way, the other team's starting point guard's 5'9", their shooting guard 6 feet, their small forward 6'2", their power forward 6'3", their center's 6'3", but he's thick. Like, you know what I mean? There's mismatches, and obviously Maryland has some size, but this roster is complete. I don't know if you guys realize we're not adding anybody else. The roster's done. And I don't think that Maryland basketball has ideal size. I don't. To win at the Big Ten level, to compete at the Big Ten level, Maryland basketball doesn't have quite the size that you probably would want. They just don't. They're a little bit small in areas. They don't have the type of size that you would want. Pharrell Payne's probably our biggest guy. He's not even the biggest guy in the world. Like, Pharrell Payne's about 6'9". Like, he's definitely not the biggest guy in the world ever. So I'm concerned about Maryland's size on the front court. I know we brought in Colin Metcalf from Northeastern, but like, I'm not super over the moon about him, to be completely honest, and about some of him being a potential big man. I know at the 4 position we have guys that are pretty solid size, if you could say. Elijah Sanders, to me, is a little undersized. Like, he's more of a 4'3" than a 4'5". Even a guy, even some of the freshmen that we brought in, he's not that big. That we recently brought in for to be kind of a 4. He's not the biggest guy ever. So I think that when you look at Maryland basketball size, it's just not a ton of it. And I do think it has to get better, or not better. You can't work on your height. I do think it's a concern for this year. So we'll see exactly how it goes. I am a little concerned about it, but I think it'll be all right for next year. But I do think that teams might out-rebound us in cases. Teams might get more second chance opportunities than us. Teams might be able to post us up a little bit more. But you can also work with smaller size teams. Like, there's advantages you do get from getting smaller. So we'll see exactly how it ends up happening. But I do think it'll be interesting for the Terps. That's all we have for today. Thank you guys for listening to Locked On Terps. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked On Terps.